When high-level financial crime occurs, the most devastating losses are often invisible. The true cost is the public infrastructure, the hospitals, and the futures swallowed up by a few bad actors. For decades in Sri Lanka, the system hit a frustrating dead end. A corrupt official might be caught and sentenced to prison, but they often kept their illicit millions. The taxpayer was still left footing the bill for the missing roads and schools. That equation shifts with the Proceeds of Crime Act No. 5 of 2025, introduced in Parliament by the NPP government. It reworks how the state handles illicit wealth from the ground up. The core philosophy is practical. A prison sentence is only a partial recovery. True accountability under this act is defined by the physical extraction and return of stolen money. Actually recovering that money is notoriously difficult. Modern illicit wealth moves through offshore accounts, proxy owners, and opaque shell companies in a matter of seconds. Contrast that speed with traditional law enforcement, which moves at the pace of bureaucracy, waiting on warrants and cross-border cooperation while the assets vanish. If the targets are experts at making dirty money disappear, how does a domestic law forcibly wrench that wealth back into the light? Traditional laws may incapacitate the offender, but without specialized extraction tools, the state remains powerless to recover the wealth that was actually stolen. The first step in extraction is locating the hidden accounts. The act creates aggressive protections for whistleblowers, shielding and rewarding citizens who report financial crimes from the inside. Once the money is found, the law activates a presumption clause. This mechanism shifts the legal burden from the prosecution to the suspect. If an individual possesses massive wealth, vastly outweighed by their documented lawful income, the burden of proof immediately shifts. The suspect must mathematically prove their excess assets aren't from dirty money. Without that proof, crosshairs lock onto the property for immediate seizure. By reversing the burden of proof, a criminal's lavish lifestyle becomes a direct legal liability, trapping them in their own unexplained wealth. But securing the asset creates a massive logistical problem. Criminal trials take years. If it freezes a working business, a stock portfolio, or perishable goods, those assets rot and lose all value before a verdict is reached. The legislation solves this by establishing the Proceeds of Crime Management Authority. Operating as a special manager, this authority doesn't just lock the assets in an evidence room. They actively run the seized businesses, trade the portfolios, and sell off goods to preserve their exact monetary value during the trial. The government actively manages the property like an investment firm, ensuring the public doesn't eventually inherit a worthless shell. Historically, suspects used a few reliable tactics to keep their wealth: fleeing the jurisdiction, stalling proceedings with endless appeals, or dying before a criminal conviction could be finalized. The new law closes this loophole with a mechanism called non-conviction-based forfeiture. The state no longer needs to wait for a criminal conviction. It can bypass the individual entirely and sue the property itself in civil court to have a red forfeited stamp slammed onto the asset's title. Because the asset itself is on trial, dirty money can no longer hide behind a fugitive or a deceased owner. Once the authority successfully liquidates these forfeited assets, the money has to go somewhere. The first pipeline is direct restitution. If a specific person, group, or institution was actively defrauded, the law mandates the exact funds are returned directly to them. For broader structural damages, the law establishes a second pipeline, the Victims of Crime Reparation Trust Fund. This fund targets communities that suffered from localized corruption or environmental crimes. The seized funds are deployed to build welfare and reparatory projects designed to heal the exact damage caused in those areas. The Sri Lankan public is treated as the rightful legal creditor of the stolen wealth. In cases where no specific victim or community can be identified, the massive amounts of liquidated assets are redistributed through a strict mathematical formula. As shown, 80% transfers directly to the consolidated fund, directed by Parliament to finance everyday public services like hospitals, schools, and highways. The remaining 20% loops back into the system to pay for law enforcement training, investigative technology, and whistleblower rewards. This creates a self-funding, closed-loop system. The state uses the criminal's own money to finance the hunt for the next corrupt official. The Proceeds of Crime Act ensures a perpetrator's greed is forcibly converted into a direct, measurable investment in the Sri Lankan people.